juncture. And be careful of being a political chauvinist, because you can then end up being a victim of your own ideas. Going into a coalition.
Wathinda thina wathinda bangasokufa safa saphenduka saphenduka nje bongu wathinda
Greetings to all the forces, revolutionary forces of the liberation, forces of the revolution, forces of national consciousness, forces of democracy, forces of progress, and forces of unity. Welcome back to the Unapologetic channel, and today we delve into the pivotal 2024 elections and their significant impact on our country's future. The IEC on Sunday officially announced the result for the 2024 election, and it's not looking good. I did not expect the ANC, the African National Congress, to drop that badly, but they did. So, and a lot of people are saying the country have won. The ANC is currently sitting at number one with just 40.18%, followed by the DA with 21.81% and MK Party with 14.58%, replacing the EFF, which is now sitting at 9.52%. 2024 is our 1994 aged very well, I think. We also how a lot of citizens came out in number to vote for change, a very impressive, pivotal moment in South Africa. And today we stand at a critical juncture in South Africa's democratic journey since the year 1994. This 2024 election have not only marked a pivotal moment in our political landscape, but have also highlighted a deep-seated issue that threatens the very fabric of our democracy, which is the failures of the IEC, a democratic institution. Join me today as we discuss the significant decline of the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa as it failed to reach the 50% majority, and also touch on a possible coalition government between the ANC and other parties. A lot of people are saying the ANC might go into coalition with the Democratic Alliance. Others are saying the ANC will go as a party with a lot of votes will go into coalition with the EFF or either MK as well as the IFP and Patriotic Alliance of Gates and Mackenzie. No one knows what party the ANC will go into coalition with. We are all just waiting, but what we can do is just make predictions based on the interactions that they have and the relationships between these political parties. Now, I just want to really express my disappointment with how the IEC conducted this 2024 elections. And I know it's not only me, there's quite a lot of people that were really furious. Even the candidates themselves were calling, yo, what a disappointment. What a... bro, this life is killing me now. Quite a lot of people that were feeling, even the candidates themselves were calling for a recount of votes due to a lot of manipulations. There's quite a lot of evidence on the internet. We had to also constantly encourage people not to be deterred and really remain on long queues, waiting for more than 8 hours just to vote. And the worst part is that no one offered extra service in those times of panic when the sun was setting while people were waiting on long queues. Many left due to safety reasons, other commitment, hunger, thirst, and many other valid reasons. The IEC had 5 full years to prepare for one day of elections, and they failed to execute their constitutional mandate due to their slow system, lack of employees, lack of preparation, and system crashes. They were not efficient at all, if you are to be honest. And if you look in the Constitution, in terms of Section 190, subsection 1B of the Constitution, the Electoral Commission must ensure that the elections are free and fair. Over 27 million people registered to vote, but a lot couldn't vote. Hence, you see that the number of people who casted their vote is just around 16.2 million out of the 27 million people who registered to vote. This is the worst turnout ever in our history since democracy. And then they didn't even take a moment to highlight that and own up to their own mistakes during the announcing of the election. The chairperson and the chief electoral officer of the IEC did not even take the blame for the bad turnout. Very disappointing. However, they did highlight that they will take suggestions to improve. But I hold that in my own perspective, I believe that these elections were not just contrary to the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, but how the IEC conducted itself threatens our democracy. But we can't complain because it says the result have been announced already. But I just hope that this will not be a concern in the near future, because we cannot afford to have the same mistakes being done again. I mean, if you look at 27 million people registered to vote, and only around 16.2 million people voted. That's very disappointing. But I just hope that the IEC going forward will really try to explore introducing other methods of collecting votes, because it's very clear that the method that we have now is not really working that as it worked before. I mean, we are relying on the same method that was utilized in 1994. There are other countries out there that are not using the same method, and this manual method of collecting votes is easy to corrupt. I mean, we saw how a lot of numbers got changed on papers, and also a lot of boxes going missing. Maybe this is time now the IEC tries to really find other methods like voting online, or just having an additional sort of method of voting rather than just relying on one method of voting. That can also help to increase the turnouts, because not everyone has to have time to go in queue for more than 8 hours. And we saw that with the low voter turnout, that people really this method is not sustainable, basically. And maybe if you have any idea of what method we can use, or maybe you know how other countries are conducting their elections, maybe you can drop it on the comment section. Who knows, we might pick up those ideas and then take them to the right people, because we all South Africans, right, we must be patriotic in the sense that we must do anything possible to help our country, because we're not just helping the IEC in this regard, we're helping yourself, you're helping your country. So I think that's very fundamental. And now let's just have a look at the decline of the ANC. As I say, the IEC on Sunday counted all the votes, and they made an announcement. The ANC has made a significant drop from 57.5 in 2019 to a humbling 40.18%. Although they got a victory as a party with a lot of votes, but they failed to reach a 50% majority for the first time since 1994. This 2024 elections has revealed the ANC's This 2024 elections have revealed the ANC's significant decline under the leadership of Cyril Ramaphosa. The ANC has dominated South African politics for more than 30 years, and their downfall was predicted by the polls way before the elections. Only the ANC leaders thought they were going to win the elections. They even said they were not threatened by MK Party. They call it a Zulu Party. Now they have disappeared. Even people like Abufigile Mbalula have nothing to say now on Twitter. And the worst part is that many are losing their jobs within the ANC. From 230 seats to just 159. It's an insane decline. MPs, that means 71 MPs are now without jobs, are unemployed, basically. But however, there's a lot of issues that led to the significant decline of the ANC. I think that is worth paying attention to. Top of the list, we know unemployment rate. South Africa is at a terrible state right now, with the highest unemployment rate in the world, which the unemployment rate is sitting at 32.1%. On top of that, South Africa is the most unequal country in the world, and you can imagine how bad the situation is now. But let us take a step back to 2018. I think the 15th of February, this was when Cyril Ramaphosa was sworn in, leading to the ANC winning, getting a victory in 2019 with 57.5%. The unemployment rate at that time was sitting at 27.2%, and the ANC made a bunch of promises that they will elevate the status of the country and create a lot of employment. But actually, what is said is that they did the total opposite. Not only did this ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa fail to deliver, as always, we are used to them actually, but they took people out of jobs, locking them up inside the houses, and sent a bunch of soldiers to beat them up and make sure that they were not working. They killed a lot of businesses across the country. And since then, the people of the country haven't been able to recover. As a solution, What the ANC did is that they said we're going to give you 350 instead of rebuilding the economy and creating jobs. And they created an even worse dependent citizenry after especially after the 9 wasted years and the state capture. To make the situation worse, what the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa has done is to give us load shedding, which is controlled by remote air. When this match is playing, we're going to switch on the lights. When this certain thing is happening, when it's time for election, we're going to use the remote and control load shedding. It doesn't make any sense, and it just shows that these people were not really committed to empowering the citizen. And how can we forget corruption? I mean, on top of all those things, corruption has further destabilized the country, making service delivery for citizens who are forced to pay insane taxes. Another issue that is worth paying attention to is the return of Jacob Zuma. Zuma's departure from the ANC and his support for the MK party have not only split the votes in the key regions, but also weakened the ANC's overall support. The ANC difficulty in addressing issues that I've already mentioned, like unemployment, poverty, and persistent power cuts, have further alienated voters from the ANC. Zuma's return in politics exploited these grievances, positioning the MK party as an alternative for those who are affected by the failures of the ANC. The MK advocates for radical economic proposals like land expropriation without compensation and nationalization of bank and mines, which resonate with a segment of the population. This is what the ANC has promised people before, that we are going to give you land, and they have been failing constantly. The MK party advocates for things like economic they advocate for radical economic proposals like land expropriation without compensation and nationalization of banks as well as mine, which resonate with the segment of the population. I mean, this is what the ANC has promised people before, and they've been constantly failing. Now people feel like the MK party could be their hope. Hence, you see them breaking away from the ANC. Additionally to that, you have the EFF, which did not really do so well this time, but has been cutting votes and leading to the decline of the ANC since 2014, as well as other small parties like your Rise Mzansi, Action SA, and Patriotic Alliance of Gates and Mackenzie, which is coming very hard. Although it's eating a lot from the DA, however, it's also contributing. All these other small parties are also contributed to the decline of the ANC. Now the dawn of coalition politics. Many have predicted this, and now we've arrived. The ANC with 40%, if they want to continue being in power, they need to find a coalition partner or partners, and that is not always an easy thing to do. So what is a coalition government? A coalition government is when several political parties work together to create a majority in the legislature. This usually happens when no single party wins enough seats to govern on its own. So parties join forces to form a majority in such a government. The parties involved negotiate to divide power, responsibility, and cabinet position, and they must cooperate in making policy decisions and legislative initiative. I saw people saying a lot of things, so I want to put it out there that there is absolutely no predetermined formula or procedure when it comes to forming a coalition. Very interestingly, in the past few days, a lot has been said and written about the possible coalition government, and media, as always, is pushing different agenda, claiming to know what is good for this country. We know majority of them are funded to mislead the people. Nobody actually knows which parties will be good as coalition partners. Is it the ANC and DA, or ANC, MK, and EFF? So many speculations. It depends on the leaders themselves and their willingness to work together and structure their policies in a way that actually benefits the entire country. We can say that the ANC and DA will be an ideal coalition partners, but what if they don't agree on positions? Many parties haven't put their proposals on the table, and for that reason, according to me, we cannot simply draw a conclusion based on favoritism. There's about 400 seats in parliament, and the ANC at the current juncture have 159 seats, and they only need 42 more seats to form a majority and take over government. Parties will have to find each other. I've said this. So parties will have to find each other and agree on how they're going to share power once in a coalition. What is one of the options? The ANC can go into coalition with small parties to avoid the DA, MK, and the EFF. But obviously, that will not be a good idea, or rather a good approach, as it might result into a lot of instability. I want us to look at the possible coalition government, which could be either the ANC and the ANC, DA, and IFP, or secondly, ANC, MK, and EFF, and maybe Patriotic Alliance of Gayton Mackenzie. Which one is an ideal coalition government? A lot of people are saying they don't want a coalition between ANC and DA because the DA will give us apartheid too. Some are saying the DA is the epitome of what the apartheid government represents or represented. The ANC, according to me, the ANC negotiated with the National Party in the 1990s. So I completely do not understand why they will not go into talks with the DA in a democratic society. You can't just rule out a party, especially if they have an interest and they are performing good in certain areas. Others also are saying that they don't want the ANC, EFF, and MK coalition because the economy will collapse, the rand will collapse, and it will be doomsday, as Steinhazen has said. To be honest, I totally disagree with these views. Only God knows what will actually happen if these parties decide to go into coalition. And to be honest, human beings can be very biased, and that's very problematic when it comes to politics. When it comes to coalition government, right, it is all about leadership, and parties will have to find each other and agree on policies that are good for the country. This is a process where individualism does not play that much big role. Parties need to find themselves and think about the greater good of society. And if they can agree on that and they are true leaders, they can be able to agree on policies that will be good for the country and govern in such a way that it benefits the country. It's not an EFF or MK or ANC thing. It's a country, it's a South African thing. We want to take South Africa forward. And I think this is the time where we're going to see if the South African political leaders really love South Africa. Because they can see that we are at a point where we don't have a ruling party. The ANC failed to get the majority as the party with a lot of votes. So with that basically means parties now need to come together and showcase their love for the country and the citizens. And like I said, I do believe that this is the time where we will separate the leaders from the liars. Surprisingly, a lot of people are making speculation primarily based on their support for certain parties. There's a big chunk of people that voted for the ANC, DA, EFF, MK, IFP, PA, and other political organizations. And if we are really democratic, we must then respect the trust that these people have put on those parties. That's what really matters at this current juncture. And be careful of being a political chauvinist, because you can then end up being a victim of your own ideas. Going into a coalition government needs an open mind, and it is not helpful to be bound by the limitations of political or organizational partisanship. ANC, DA, and IFP. Let's now deal with that. How will that coalition government work out? And I want to make it clear that this is not going to be my support for it, but my position on it. My aim is to analyze the possible outcomes and implications of such a coalition objectively. I subscribe to political pluralism and constructivism. The main coalition talks are set to take place later this week, but the DA has confirmed yesterday that they are in preliminary talks with ANC and IFP to become potential coalition partners. We know why they're doing it. I'm not going to go into that. So the DA, for the longest time, has been preparing for a coalition government with the ANC in 2024. I was reading an article from 2022 by the DA, I think October 13th to be precise. They say that SA should prepare for a coalition government in 2024. Is it because they knew that they were going to reach the votes? I read. But they say that for the first time in 70 years, the era of one party domination was coming to an end in 2024. That was a good prediction. We can all agree that, to be honest, that South Africans at this point are not ready to be led by a white party, given the historical background and the continued imperial oppression. So I think that a coalition government between the ANC and DA might be a good start. 201 seats in parliament are necessary for a coalition to be formed. And ANC has 159 seats, the DA sitting with 87. So if they combine their seats together, they'll be making 246 seats. And if they bring in the IFP, that will be more seats. Coalition government between the ANC and the DA, in my view, could potentially play a significant role in realizing Nelson Mandela's dream and the idea of a rainbow nation. That's if it is executed well. This vision, which is deeply rooted in principles like these principles of unity, reconciliation, inclusive governments, aims to create a society where diverse culture, races, ethnic groups exist harmoniously and are treated equally. We have been speaking about this for a very long time. I mean, it has always been an idea that we have never put into practice. So Nelson Mandela, as he said, I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunity. We know who these parties are representing. And if the leaders of these two parties could act and lead properly, we can address a lot of issues and move forward as a united nation. That's if we want to truly achieve the idea of a rainbow nation. Political leaders have a big role in a society, and them being united in leadership positions, in positions of power, can have good influence in policies and have a significant impact on how the citizens on how the citizens interact with each other. I know a lot of people don't understand me right now and you're not agreeing with what I'm saying, but please hear me out. I'm just gonna try to break it down and try to make sense. The market favors this coalition between because at least the DA and ANC are not radical and are not looking for a whole transformation, but rather very focused on economic performance. The RAND is expected to perform positively if the ANC and DA go into coalition. The white establishment have been pushing this idea since 1994. A lot of people might not know this, which that brings no doubt why the economy is expected to perform better when the DA is involved in the coalition. Our economic system is captured, and investors are more likely to invest are likely to invest more money, leading to economic growth and jobs if the DA is involved compared to when other parties which are more radical are involved in a coalition. And yes, politicians are puppets of capitalists. They are funded by the capitalists. They are capitalists are funding their campaign, so it shouldn't be a surprise why the economy will perform better with this coalition government. They will pour money, leading to developments and employment opportunities. So there might be some sort of growth there and there. Most importantly, this coalition between ANC and DA will reduce political uncertainty and provide a more stable political environment, which is crucial, obviously, for things like economic growth. And if there is stability, that can reduce investors' fear about policy change happening and there being chaos, as they benefit very much from the Black people's suppression and delayed economic liberation. A coalition between the ANC and DA could potentially bring about a more stable political climate in South Africa, which might enhance the performance of the rand and attract investors. A lot of political analysts have already predicted this. I don't say it's right, but this is what actually happens when you are not in control of your own country. But the big question is, will there be social developments, which is the very fundamental part? Will people be elevated from poverty and unemployment rate, which is sitting at 32.1%? Are we going to see a very significant decline in the unemployment rate and elevation of poverty? I think that we can all wait to see happen. This coalition can either go well or go very wrong. And if it does, I think that the DA will have to kiss the chance of leading this country goodbye. I think this is the only time and only chance that the DA have to prove itself to the people of this country. However, one other important thing is that under the DA and ANC, based on their policy, I personally do not see land expropriation without compensation happening. I do not see there being free quality education. I think that the DA and ANC they don't really advocate for that. And I also see the NSFAS continuing to die under this coalition. And last point, I think the private sector will continue to flourish, which will lead to more inequalities, because we know that in the private sector there's so much exploitation, and in order for the rich to get rich, there has to be more poor people or more people that get exploited. Now let's look at a coalition between ANC, MK, and EFF, not favored by the market for obvious reason. MK and EFF are inspired by socialist and Marxist ideas. This coalition has been ruled out by a lot of political analysts, and people claim to not prefer it because of the conflicts between these parties. And one thing people forget to understand is that at some point in history, all these parties were just one party, were under one umbrella, the ANC. And I don't think they hate each other, to be honest. I just think that they disagree a lot when it comes to ways of governance. The ANC was started in 1912, MK Party 2023, and EFF was started in 2014, and they all share a commitment to addressing social and economic inequalities, and they differ in terms of how to go about that. The ANC is very much compromised in my view, and they want to step properly, while the EFF and MK are more radical in their policies. Nationalization, land expropriation without compensation, and the economic policy is about state must lead, while the ANC is in support of privatization, which then gives us an understanding of why the market will react negatively, because in the private sector, as I have stated already, there's a lot of exploitation. And if you read the EFF and the MK manifestos, you will understand that they seek to intervene very much in the private sector and empower the disadvantaged. So, hypothetically speaking, this coalition might indeed lead to investors pulling out in the short term. And as Comrade Rand is very sensitive and we know is manipulated, will be affected. But there can be social change, and the ancestors of this country, and I think a lot of you will agree with me on that, the ancestors of this country will have won. However, again, this all depends on the party leaders. Are they willing to put their differences aside and find each other to stand for what is good for the country? Sponsored journalists should not mislead you. MK, being 5 months old, says nothing about its capabilities. ANC, MK, and EFF all share a common history and a common goal of advancing the interests of the people of South Africa, particularly the previously disadvantaged, who are still languishing in poverty. While their paths may have diverged over the years, the underlying principle of justice and equality still binds them together. MK and EFF are more likely to push the ANC to the right directions and hold them accountable. We have seen that happen in the past. In the past couple of years. Imagine what can actually happen when all these parties have some sort of influence in the policies and in government. This obviously threatens a lot of white establishment, as we might witness land expropriation and as well as economic empowerment for the blacks. You can't have three black parties leading a country and see no change. I fail to believe that. The narrative that is being pushed is very fallacious, and it's highly impossible. I mean it's just propaganda which is pushed by certain people to promote a fallacious narrative that black people cannot govern. You can't tell me that three parties in government will fail to bring about change, rather will bring the economy of the country down. We know that the rand is manipulated, but I don't want to delve much into that because this is not the whole point of this video, and I think that this video is getting even longer. I wanted to make it a 20 minutes video, but I think I'm over that. So what is my conclusion? I want to be honest. I don't prefer any party over another. Going to these talks. All I want is for a best coalition government to be formed and supported by others. I believe that the key success to a coalition between the ANC, MK, EFF, or either ANC and DA lies in strong leadership and willingness to compromise for the benefit of South Africa. These parties have different approaches to governing, but at the end of the day, they all have the same and end goal in their mind, which is a better future for South Africa. You can read their manifestos, you'll see the same thing. All I imagine is these parties working successfully together. The strength that they could leverage and the impact they could have cannot be underestimated at this point. It is not only possible, but essential that they set aside their differences and come together for the greater good of the people and show us that they really love this country. My position is that let us not dismiss the idea of a coalition between ANC, MK, and EFF, or ANC and DA out of hand. Let us instead come together, open our hearts, open our minds to the potential benefits of such a collaboration, and work towards a brighter future for all. This is the time for unity, and coalition government is inevitable at this point, and many are becoming victims of their own limitations. It's not good. Should the parties going into coalition fail, we are here, others are here. It's our duty to hold them accountable as citizens. And when going into this talk this week, I hope that all these leaders will put citizens and the country first, and they don't play politics with the lives of people, and they just go there to build and find each other so that they can build a future for this country. That is all that I'm asking for. And again, it's not a good idea to say I want this party over this party, because to me it doesn't make any necessary sense, because we have never seen most of this party actually lead. We just have our own views on them, either based on hatred, based on favoritism, based on a whole lot of things. We don't know. We can just make assumptions and make predictions. But what matters is that we get a good coalition government. That's what matters for this country. I don't think it really matters that anyone get. I don't think it really matters that maybe your party go into coalition government. I mean, that's favoritism. We want the best guys to come together and rule South Africa. I think we came to the conclusion of the video, and thank you very much for watching. I didn't really expect or intend to make this video very long. I wanted to actually make it 20 minutes, but there's a lot of things that I need to touch on, and I didn't want to leave anything unexplained. I think I'm going to be dropping another video this week because I want to touch on the meeting that Jacob Zuma and Julius Malema had a couple of years ago, a couple of years ago. And I also want to touch on the impact of Umkhonto weSizwe, and people are saying the EFF declined. I don't know about that, and I also want to look into that. So see you guys.